Call this meeting to order at 6:30 on June 3rd, 2024. Recognition of all members present is everyone is present except for the mayor who has been excused, and I'm stepping in her place as deputy mayor. If we can all pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. That brings us to item 4 of the general, which is recognition of Danielle Pelletier, York County Teacher of the Year. Senator Bailey will attend to present the legislative settlement. 2024 York County Teacher of the Year, Danielle Pelletier. The Maine Department of Education's Teacher of the Year program is administered through a partnership with Educate Maine. More than 600 teachers were nominated by a member of the school community. One teacher from each county is then selected by a panel of teachers, principals, and business community members within this respective county. Over the summer, the selective process will continue with Maine Teachers of the Year being announced in the fall. Danielle Pelletier was recently named the 2024 York County Teacher of the Year at the Maine State Capitol. Danielle has been an educator for 16 years, 8 of those in Saco as a third grade teacher. In addition to her outstanding work with her third grade students, promoting collaboration between students and as a result improved social skills, Ms. Pelletier also mentors teachers and works with her peers to develop new curriculum and strengthening professional development. Ms. Pelletier was also a state finalist for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Training for her mathematics instruction. Please join me in congratulating Danielle on being named York County's Teacher of the Year. On behalf of the mayor, along with the city council and the Saco community, thank you, not only for your dedication to our children, but also for your ongoing commitment to strengthen and improve our educational system. Thank you. Ms. Pelletier, can you please come up to here, and with Senator Bailey as well, who has the legislative settlement. So I will hand the floor to the senator.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Pelletier. I'd just like to share that what I have heard since the announcement of this award, most often from both parents and former students alike, is what took them so long. So we're glad that they finally are giving you the recognition that you deserve, and I'm honored to present to you this legislative sentiment. For those of you who don't know, a legislative sentiment is the highest honor that the Maine State Legislature can bestow upon a citizen. It's given out for people of particular merit, distinction, or honor. And the one I'm going to present to you reads, "Be it known to all that we, the members of the Senate and House of Representatives, join in recognizing Danielle Pelletier of Saco, a third grade teacher at C.K. Burns School, who has been named the 2024 York County Teacher of the Year by the Maine Department of Education. We extend our congratulations and best wishes, and be it ordered that this official expression of sentiment be sent forthwith on behalf of the 131st Legislature and the people of the state of Maine." You can see it signed by Troy Jackson, the President of the Senate, Derek Grant, who's the Secretary of the Senate, Rachel Talbot Ross, the Speaker of the House, and Robert Hunt, the Clerk of the House, and sponsored by Senator Bailey and the rest of the Saco delegation. So congratulations, and thank you for all of your service.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Would you like to take a picture with the council and the senator?
Sure, yeah.
We all want to.
This way.
Help me.
Usually it's over there.
Can everyone just take one big step this way? A couple little steps works too. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Let me check quickly. Looks great.
All right, with the conclusion of that, we move on to committee correspondence to council. Do we have any committee correspondence to council? No? I have one item. Would you like me to step down? It's only information only. Okay. Just want to remind you, my term with Maine Municipal Associations, LPC, is ending within the next couple weeks. We, as a city, do not have to have a person on that committee because it can go to multiple seats throughout Senator Bailey's district. So Maine Municipal reached out and just said if there's any candidates that wanted to be considered. And you go up to the state a couple times, up to Augusta, and work on some issues related to LPC. And it does not have to be a municipal officer. I do believe it can be staff or things like that, but I just wanted to give an update on that. That's all I have. All right. All right, that brings us to public comment. I have nobody that signed up on the public comment sheet. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? Okay. That brings us to item 7, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Hatch. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Was that Councilor Berman? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
I remember. All right. With that, passes 6-0. That brings us to item 8, consent agendas. The consent items, we have item A, massage establishment license for Jill Dennison of JAGD LLC, doing business as Jill Amanda /Being. B is confirm mayor's reappointment to the Traffic Safety Committee for William Gale, and C confirms mayor's appointment to the Conservation Commission, Paul Christian and Curtis Scammon. Do we have a motion to accept? First of all, do we have anybody that wants an item to be pulled? Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the consent items as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Hatch and a second by Councilor Gunn. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Perfect. For the consent item, 6-0. Yes, 6-0. All right, that brings us on to item 9, action items. So first, we have a reading of Chapter 118, Harbor, River, and Waterfront Ordinance Revision, and that's assigned to, it's not on my list, so I do apologize. Councilor Berman.
A newly edited version of Chapter 118 is being presented, which includes changes to the harbor master position. Be it ordered that the City of Saco hereby ordains Chapter 118, Harbor, River, and Waterfront proposed ordinance amendments as presented, amended.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion? With no discussion, we'll move on to roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0. That brings us to item B, a final and second reading of Chapter 153 Outdoor Food Vending Ordinance. I believe that's Councilor Johnston.
Yes, thank you. Staff have compiled a new draft ordinance, Chapter 153, Outdoor Food Vending. The new ordinance was created from the food truck and sidewalk vendor policies adopted by Council on March 27, 2023. This was a pilot program in which the Council requested staff to bring the item back in ordinance form. Staff also recommends an amendment to Chapter 230 to cross-reference with Chapter 153. The draft ordinance and amended definition have been reviewed by the City Solicitor, Tim Murphy. Be it ordered that the City of Saco hereby ordains Chapter 153 Outdoor Food Vending Ordinance and amendment to Chapter 230, Article 21, Section 230-2103, outdoor sales associated with principal uses be amended as presented in Exhibit 4.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second?
We have a second by Counselor Hatch, sorry. Any discussion? Counselor Johnson?
Thank you. I've got several items, I guess. First, just for transparency purposes, you'll notice I made a minor alteration to what was presented as the motion, just to better clarify what we are actually doing there. Those Roman numerals that exist in the zoning ordinance honestly need to be subtracted from it. It's not accurate. Anyway, I would say that I think several weeks ago when we last talked about this, there was some discussion on possible amendments. I had discussed, I think several other counselors may have been interested. So I will offer those as amendments and we can discuss them. So I would move to amend Article 2, Section 153-2(3), additional requirements for units located on public property. Item F, by adding a letter C, Saco Transportation Center, and D, Diamond Park, and further amend item G to read, units are allowed only in a non-residential district except as provided for under item F above and for special events.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to amend. It's been seconded by Counselor, it was a motion to amend by Counselor Johnston and seconded by Counselor Berman. Do we have any discussion? Counselor Johnson?
All right, so the intent, thank you. The intent is to, straightforward, is add the transportation center. I don't know if that was intentionally deleted. I think it was there in a prior ordinance that we had reviewed, and then I had suggested adding Diamond Park as a potential location, and then recognizing that that next item in the ordinance forbid non-residential districts, I added as provided for under F and for special events. That way it's clear, it's really just Diamond Park that is in a residential district currently, but it also would provide us with flexibility in the future. I know there's been discussion in past years about potentially Bayview as a location, and I'm not advocating for that today, but I just thought it gives us that leeway in the future.
Do you have any other questions, or should I bring up the Economic Development Director? Go ahead, Tracy.
Good evening, Tracy Desjardins, Director of Economic Development. When staff got together, we had originally had the Transportation Center in there as a place for the vendor. During the time that there was a lot of things happening down the Transportation Center, we did have a vendor that went down there and basically was chased out and said he'd never go back down there again. Staff looked at that also as the opportunity when it comes to parking or whatever as well, so that was why we removed that from there, the Transportation Center. And we did speak, I did speak with Ryan Sumner, Director of Parks and Recreation, in regards if we wanted to include any of the parks. We did mention Diamond Park, especially for events. When it comes to the events, whomever is doing the event can have whatever food trucks that they want as part of their event cycle.
Okay, do we have any questions? Counselor Berman?
I'm sorry, I think I missed some of the details. Can you explain a bit more about the experience of the food vendor truck at the transportation center and what that experience was like?
The experience is basically he was feeling harassed. People were asking for food. People were asking for money. People were threatening to take his money. He felt unsafe.
Do you think the situation has improved since they have security there now?
From what I've gone down, when I went down there for the last meeting, I think things have definitely improved, that there's been a change within time. I'm just not sure within the time of the trains coming in and the people, kind of there, and with the buses, if it makes sense to have a space down there allocated, is because space is still so precious down there for parking.
Any other questions? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. To the second part of Councilor Johnston's First Amendment, he was discussing having the language in there for special events so nothing is precluded by ordinance from some organization or outfit having an event with food trucks. And your judgment is that by having that in the amendment as he proposes, would that clarify it? Would it strengthen it? Is it a redundancy? But, because, all things being fair, I definitely support the intent one way or the other, though, because the last thing you want to do is have language that precludes an organization from bringing in food trucks, even if they're not allowed on the daily basis.
Correct. When we had looked at that, and again, I don't have it right in front of me, we've been going back and forth on this so many times, that it was in there, the language was in there to say that if somebody was having an event and wanted food trucks, they would fall under the venue of the event. So they basically wouldn't come under the city's policies. They would go under the guidance and that of the event. So if Saco Main Street was going to have their arts festival and they wanted food trucks, then everybody that wanted to have a food truck would go under the Saco Main Street. They would fill an application through Saco Main Street. They would pay for their vending fee to Saco Main Street.
As a follow-up, by putting Councilor Johnston's language as proposed in there, would that give vendors the ability to go to the city directly if there was an event and, not everybody, the unfortunate fact of the matter is that sometimes, some people get spots and some people, don't get on in something. I wouldn't want a vendor to miss an opportunity because of just interpersonal stuff, though. So if it was possible to give vendors the ability to come to the city directly if they know they could participate in an event, food related, even if it doesn't really affect the event, though. Do you really want to give, organizations the power to decide, who plays and who doesn't?
In my history, I have done that. I've given the powers to the event.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's a fundraiser for them. So what we don't want is that somebody, coming in and there's this festival going on and they're going through that organization, and then somebody comes into the city and says, okay, I'm going to park my food truck right here. Then that really isn't fair to the organization that is putting on the event. And the idea of it is to kind of just streamline and have them go through that process and allow them to take advantage of that event. So keeping them really separate.
I see. Thank you.
Councilor Johnston is first, and Councilor Berman after.
Thank you. I certainly can understand staff's concerns about the transportation center, but many years ago, when this was in its infancy, that was the location that I first started working with a vendor, a drink cart vendor, and overall, he had reported decent success there. Now I understand we had some situations there, but I think that's really the wrong reason to preclude the location. That's ultimately the decision of the applicant. If they decide it's not worth their time, they just won't go back. So it makes sense to have it in the ordinance. They can, make their own free decision on that. In regards to Diamond Parks, for clarity purposes, the language about special events already exists in what's presented. I wanted to add it as a location that a person or a vendor could locate at. Presently, it's not allowed. It wouldn't be allowed under the ordinance, And I look at that location as a potentially good location if, that park takes off the way I anticipate it may. And again, it would be up to an individual vendor to decide if they want, to locate there. Maybe it's not worth their time today, but I just think it makes sense to, have that location given the boat launch and whatnot. So that was my thought behind it.
Thank you, Tracy.
Councilor Berman? Do you still need the?
I'll answer that.
No, I don't think I have any more questions. I was just going to make a similar point, I think, to Councilor Johnston, that we could probably treat the transportation center like we treat Camp Ellis, in that there are signs, labeling it for food truck use only when somebody has reserved the space, and when nobody's there, those spaces could be reopened for anybody to park, thereby not taking a spot. And if food vendors are having bad experiences there, then they simply won't apply to locate there, and those spots will remain open. And if it turns out it becomes viable at some point in the future, they could then locate there and take a minimum of spots. And I think later on the agenda today, we'll be talking about the municipal lot adjacent to the train station. And so hopefully that will relieve some of the pressure on parking once that gets going. I think facilitating this process. So I think Councilor Johnson had it exactly, that people may not want to locate there, but that shouldn't preclude us from allowing it if that is indeed the case.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Councilor Hewitt?
I agree with Counselor Johnston, because I think if we had like an ice cream truck or some sort of truck that wasn't a special event, that allowed people to get like lunch at the transportation center if they worked at the mills, or, a snack for their kids at Diamond Park on any given day, not just a special event, it may draw more people to those venues.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, we will be voting on the amendment as presented by Councilor Johnston. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
The amendment passes 6-0. Now on to the motion. Do we have any other discussion on the original motion? Councilor Johnston?
Yes, I would offer another amendment under Article 3, which is sidewalk vending. I would add a letter J, which would read, "Any establishment wishing to allow the consumption of alcohol in the sidewalk operations area must have a current on-premises liquor license and an extension of license privileges from the State of Maine Bureau of Alcoholic Beverages and Lottery Operations."
All right, we have another amendment from Councilor Johnston. Is there a second to this proposed amendment? Do we have a second to this proposed amendment?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion? Councilor Gunn?
Just seeking some clarity from Councilor Johnston, what page would this language be inserted in?
Page 61. So I'd be adding an additional letter or item to the requirements. And the reason,
J, okay.
yeah, the reason being, I guess one could say, let me pull it up, that requiring, compliance with other state laws or whatever it's kind of an ambiguous, there it is. Establishment must comply with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations, including the Americans with Disability Act. You could say that may capture this, but I think that in instances like this, or anytime we're creating ordinance, we need to be clear, because as is, we've allowed this, and it's against the law the way it's been operated for the last 3 years. It's against state law. They have to have an extension of premises permit. And again, I've stated this before, I don't have a problem with what's occurred, but I have had people make complaints to me about people drinking on the sidewalks outside of the designated area. So I just, again, clarity purposes and the city's liability purposes and whatnot, I think that we should make sure it's understood that if you are a vendor or a business that serves alcohol, you got to be licensed to do what you're doing. before we give them an application. So that was my thought behind it.
Councilor Berman?
Yeah, really a question or inquiry. Is this not covered by the text directly under the 153-3.2 general requirements on page 60, where it reads, sidewalk vending in the city of Saco shall conform to requirements as outlined in Chapter 132, license and registration, Chapter 219, victulars licenses, and other applicable city policies and ordinances, and the following? I'm wondering if that requirement isn't already covered by Chapter 132 and Chapter 219.
I don't believe it is. I think you may find more ambiguous language, but I'm being direct and to the point that there is an additional step. And again, many of you know that I've owned and operated a bar myself, and it's clear. Like I'll use my own example. We could serve on the deck, down and up, but you could not take drinks down those steps onto the patio below, which happened to be owned by my father. That would require an extension of our permit, even though one might look at it and say, oh, it's all the same law or whatnot. It's not legally. There's different, liabilities there, to be honest. In the fact that we're allowing people to openly drink on public property, I think that we might want to make sure that they're actually licensed for it, which, again, in the past, to my knowledge, because I did inquire with one, and it's just a matter of not knowing that it's a requirement, to be honest. And that's why I think putting it in the ordinance makes it clear for city staff and anybody else that may read this, oh, I have to have those other permits too.
Any other discussions? Councilor Hewitt?
Is there an additional cost to the business?
Government doesn't do anything for free, so yeah, I mean, there's obviously probably, I don't know, off the top of my head, I don't know what the extension of a permit would be. And the liquor license is a variety of costs, but assuming that they're already serving, which most of the places on Main Street do, I'm assuming they have a current liquor license, so I wouldn't imagine it's anywhere close to the initial license. Probably $40 is what I'm thinking.
Any other questions? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Roger. I'm listening to the discussion here, and I think that I would be in favor of this language only because, we've had experiences before with other situations where the language lacked clarity, and if we have a little redundancy in the mix and it gives more clarity, I'm all for it. So I don't see a problem adding that extra language to the proposed ordinance here.
I would just add, I said I didn't have it in front of me, but I actually did print it off. I don't see an actual cost, but one of the other reasons I desired this is as part of that process, an applicant would have to come before this body and get approval, and it's another clearinghouse. And as there's an item later on I'll get to that doesn't have that same clearinghouse. So it's one of those things that, if you have an applicant that has had citations or just overall the public having had issues, as I've said, I've over the last 4 years now, or since we first put that policy in place during COVID, I've certainly have had several individuals come to me and not necessarily complain, but ask how things are being allowed to be done. And you look at City of Portland and how they do things, and they're far more restrictive with it. So, I mean, to me, it's just, again, marrying with what the state requires.
Any other questions on the amendment? All right, just on the second amendment, roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
All right, amendment passes 6-0. Any other discussion on the original motion with the two added amendments? All All right, with none there, this is to vote on the original motion with the two added amendments. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. That brings us to item C, a final and second reading, proposed ordinance amendments to Chapter 202 Trees and Section 179, TAC 201, Site Plan Review in response to council's request regarding April 1st emergency moratorium on clear cutting of trees. And I believe that is Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
You're welcome.
Following the April 1st, 2024 adoption of the emergency moratorium on clear cutting of trees and the direction provided at the April 10th and April 22nd City Council meetings, planning staff provides the draft ordinance amendments to Chapter 204 and Section 179-2.01 of Saco's City Code. These proposed revisions will require a site plan review for tree removal activities of 2 or more acres that involve change of use notification to the Maine Forest Service. Be it ordered that the City Council hereby ordains revisions to Chapter 204 trees and Section 179-2.01 site plan review of the City Code of Ordinances as presented in the May 6, 2024 City Council meeting packet materials.
All right, we have a motion as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Gunn. Any discussion? Counselor Hewitt?
With the new ordinance, will there need to be an additional staff added to supervise the removal of trees, or is that something that'll be handled by the state? I know there was discussion of that.
Well, the way, excuse me if I might, Your Honor.
Yes.
So as it stands now, I don't think there would be any additional staff required, but I'll defer to Director Prescott to go further into it. It depends on if we go further into any changes later on, but I'll let her speak to that.
Yes, thank you for that question. Appreciate you looking out for staffing. So as we know, we have the Assistant Planner of Compliance. Part of her role is going to be, as soon as we get a notification on this, to go out immediately and check it. So we're going to have to monitor the situation and report back if there's staff demands that are higher than we anticipated.
Does that answer your
Thank you.
question? Any other questions? No? With no other questions, I will call for the vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0. That brings us to item D, public hearing, new application for special entertainment permit, Katra Mex Restaurant. Is that Counselor Johnson?
It is. Thank you. Carlos Maldonado, doing business as Katra Mex Restaurant, has applied for a new special entertainment permit for the establishment. The applicant has paid all applicable permit fees, and the clerk has properly advertised the public hearing in accordance with the Saco City Code, Chapter 93, Entertainment, Section 93-2. I move to open the public hearing.
We have a motion to open the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Berman. Any discussion? Any discussion? I don't remember if Robert's rules, if I did or not. We don't. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to open the public hearing. Do we have anybody who wants to speak on the matter? Do we have anybody who wants to speak on the matter? All right, do we have a motion?
Move to close the public hearing and be it ordered that the City Council grant the new application submitted by Carlos Maldonado, doing business as Katra Mex Restaurant, for a special entertainment permit to be concurrent with the establishment's liquor license. I move to approve the order.
We have a motion to close the public hearing and to pass the application. Do we have any discussion? Counselor Johnson, or Counselor Hatch, I actually saw you first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question here. The hours of operation, live music till 12:45 a.m. Is that consistent with other venues in the downtown area that have live music? Does anybody know?
Your Honor, I don't have that information now, but, unfortunately, we don't have, I don't know if we have anybody here that can answer that, but we can always table it if you feel that strongly about it.
So I would just add that bars in the state of Maine are allowed to operate until 1 a.m. That's the,
I
We-
take that as an answer.
the city itself doesn't, to my knowledge, doesn't traditionally regulate hours of operations of really any business. But what I will say, I've done probably hundreds of these, and I've never been in a butter. So I'm in a butter, and I want to be clear that one of the things that kind of propped up to me from this, again, having never been the abutter, and I think this is an area of weakness that we should address at a later date, is we are required to hold a public hearing, but none of the abutters are noticed of a public hearing. That's just the way it is. It's the way it is on, our books today. But I can assure you, if this had been noticed, I think there would probably be some people here. So I will say that I did discuss this with several of my neighbors, specifically with concerns to past issues at this location with outdoor music. And so for me, I think if you look at the next application with Hewitt's, for example, they're pretty clear about it's acoustic music, it's going to be on their patio, and they have their hours of operations. I look at this as a kind of an incomplete application today because it doesn't really express where the music is going to be. I will say that I don't have an issue with music on the interior, but what was occurring last summer, again, without an entertainment permit, in the parking lot, that's something I can't really get behind, and I'm pretty sure that given the, trying to find the appropriate word here, friction that currently exists with abutters, particularly directly behind, and I'm fairly certain there's documented police reports with that. I don't have a problem with issuing the permit, but I feel it needs to be held indoors. And I'm not saying that's not their intent. I'm just saying that the application isn't clear to me what the intent is. And furthermore, holding it in the parking lot then takes up parking spaces, which they're already below the minimum threshold for parking to begin with. And my personal opinion would or should require a site plan amendment, given that you're now changing the exterior. There is no patio there. So I guess what I would be willing to offer is an amendment to this, which would be that, again, everything that's presented would remain. I would add a comma at the end of license, and then provided that the entertainment shall be performed in the interior of 27 Elm Street only.
Okay, we have an amendment. I'm going to have to kick it back to you. Are we allowed to amend someone else's permit?
Well, we're amending the acceptance of the
Yeah.
application, and I would say that City Council is well within their right to amend or deny any application. That's the whole point of an application. So yes, I can condition it, and I have seen them conditioned previously. In fact, I think we conditioned the Loudon Road establishment at one point in the past.
We have a motion to amend. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion? The city administrator would like to
Sure.
add something?
I agree with Councilor Johnston about this matter. I think it's very important to go very slow on these types of things. I've had a lot of experience as to when you grant these permits and they're not fully understood, What I will do is, if that amendment does pass, I will reach out to the business and will explain to them that this is for indoor music only. Is that your intent, Counselor?
Yeah, that's, like I said, that's my intent. I mean, again, I'm sure it lacks clarity. It says DJs. When I see DJs,
Well-
it's louder than acoustic.
Yeah.
And again, going back to what certainly was experienced last summer, I'd like to avoid it because I personally witnessed, and this isn't, again, I'm in a butter, but I'm not speaking on behalf of myself per se. I witnessed some stuff that was very near close to being physical between two parties, and I'd like to avoid that. And I know there's one direct abutter that is not very thrilled about the practices that this establishment has had in the past, and that's the past, is you know, what I'm hoping for. But being clear, that way there's no question about whether or not it's allowed outside or not. Additionally, I would say, I know most people look at the area and think it's a commercial area, but it's actually a mixed-use area, and there's hundreds. It's the densest block between Water Street, Store Street, and Pleasant Street there is in all of Saco. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that live in that area. Some of them work at night, and therefore they're sleeping during, you know, normal working hours, and that has certainly led to some instances, you know, and yeah, I mean, just overall, as Councilor Hatch pointed out, we've got 12:59 as a curfew. And again, interior, I'm not going to complain about that. As I said, I've owned and operated a bar myself. That's well within the laws, but once it's outside the building, sound carries pretty quick, believe it or not, particularly even in the downtown. It flecks off all the buildings. And it's pretty quiet past 11 p.m. on Elm Street. So I just...
Just based on the permit, not for discussion, but we traditionally have our permits expire. This one does not have it. I have not known a permit to not have an expiration date,
It's concurrent with the liquor license.
but it's not. We usually have it written,
You know,
similar to the next.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As presented, I have no issue with the amendment as presented, but given some earlier comments by Councilor Johnston that are prudent in the fact that abutters in the situation, you know, really didn't receive any notification by our own course, and that's something we must, you know, definitely I'm in favor of looking at that because that kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a public hearing if you're not really informed. I would be interested in, I'm going to say, regardless of how the amendment goes, although I said I'm amendable to the amendment, I think it might be prudent to table this. And you know me, I'm not a big fan of tabling, though, but I think it would be prudent to table it, though, because it would give some of the abutters an opportunity to come in and offer their opinions of what's been happening or what's not been happening. And also, given the state of this application, it would give the proprietor a chance to signal what their intent is, because for all we know, they could be planning on doing, say, outdoor music till 8 or 9 o'clock, and then hopefully trying to be good neighbors might be, you know, music inside after that, or maybe they're not. We don't know, because I don't certainly know these people, though, but in the absence of that information, I think it would be prudent. I mean, we just table it till the next meeting or whenever we can, you know, conveniently get it in the schedule, and I think that might help, you know, germinate some good legislation out of this. Thank you.
Making a motion, we do have hands up.
Well, since there is a amendment on the amendment to the amendment on the floor, I'm not making one yet, though. I think I'll hold off until we see how that amendment goes, and then
Okay.
you can get back to me.
Councilor Berman?
Yeah, I would be concerned about postponing this for the purpose of notifying abutters when that's not our standard practice. That seems to be a concern. I think we should apply consistent procedures to all such permits. I think as written and as amended, or as the amendment proposes by Councilor Johnston to limit the music to indoors, satisfies the concerns of the counselor, and it sounds like the neighborhood, and would allow this business to operate. And if, upon discussion with the city administrator, they had other intents, then of course it can come back to council for clarification. I would worry about passing a permit based upon a stated intent of a business, that they intend to be outside for some hours and inside for others, because the permit is actually what would allow them to do it or not. So I wouldn't want to, I'd want to base it on what's written, not on what their stated intent is. So I'm comfortable with the amendment to move it indoors for now, with the city administrator reaching out. And if that's not the intent of the business, they can come back and file an amended permit.
City Administrator Behenko, did you have something?
Yes, I think it's prudent to go slow on this, only because I've had the experience of once you get the permit, a lot of things can happen, and then you're now trying to enforce. I always find it helpful to sit down with the owner to talk about it. And so at this point, I'm just a little concerned that it's, the ambiguity of inside, and that's not what they're asking for. So I don't see what the harm would be to table this. As you could make the amendment, because I think the amendment's important, because I think it should be inside. The other things you have to think about with inside music in the summer is open windows from the establishment, which can be almost as bad as having it outside. Believe me, I know that. So I would say make the amendment, if that's what the council chooses to do, so that we have a clean amendment on here that will go before the council for next, if you table it, and that way I can present to the owner that this is the amendment with entertainment inside, and I want to make sure that they understand that perfectly.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we'll vote on the amendment. Roll call with Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
Amendment passes 6-0. That brings us back to the original motion. Do we have any discussion? Councilor Gunn?
If there was going to be any other discussion, I want to hold off. I'll hold off on my
See
comments.
no hands. Oh, Councilor Berman?
I'm just now, sorry for the delay, I'm just now looking at their liquor license on the next page, and it looks like it's a temporary license that runs May through July of this summer. Would the permit, if we pass it, be consistent with a permanent license? Are they seeking a permanent license? I think I'd be curious to know their liquor license status if this comes back to us.
And that's why I think it's important to table it. Next week we have a meeting. If we don't and we pass this and we end up with problems out there, I think it will be unfortunate.
Okay, I'll send it to Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Everything good?
I said you're welcome.
You're very polite. I appreciate that. For the reasons that I stated earlier and the city administrator stated earlier, and also to reiterate, though, we're not changing procedures, obviously, when it comes to abutters, although it gives the abutters, if they paying attention and they really do care, they will show up on their own volition, though, so it really doesn't create a precedent that way. But that being said, I would like to have the proprietor here to, answer some questions after they talk to the city administrator, get some clarity in this whole situation, and for that reason, I would like to table this until, earliest convenience.
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hatch. There is no discussion. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
The motion has been tabled. All right, that brings us to item E, a public hearing for new application for a special enter permit, Hewitt Seafood LLC. That should be Councilor Berman?
Hewitt Seafood LLC, doing business as Hewitt Seafood Restaurant, has applied for a new special entertainment permit for the establishment. The applicant has paid all applicable permit fees, and the clerk has properly advised the public hearing in accordance with the Saco City Code, Chapter 93, Entertainment, Section 93-2. I move to open the public hearing.
We have a motion to open the public hearing. Do we have a second? We have a second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion? With no discussion, to open the public hearing, Counselor Parks?
Point of order?
Oh, yes, sorry.
We had it this way.
Oh, did I miss? You can go for now. I didn't recognize you, so.
I just wanted to state that even though it's Hewitt Seafood, I have no relationship to the owners or the family. Do frequent the business a lot, but no relation.
All right, so she's just a customer. That's all I hear. All right, any other discussion? All right, perfect. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to open the public hearing passes 6-0. Does anybody wish to speak on the matter at hand? Does any member of the public wish to speak at the matter at hand? All right, do we have a motion?
I move to close the public hearing, and be it ordered the City Council grant the new application submitted by Hewitt Seafood LLC, doing business as Hewitt Seafood Restaurant, for a special entertainment permit to be concurrent with the establishment's liquor license, and I move to approve the order.
We have a motion to close the public hearing and approve the order. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Hatch. Any discussion? With no discussion, I call the vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0. That brings us to, is that a quarterly 3 fiscal year 24 report?
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. As you notice, we have a new format for the report. It's pretty self-explanatory. I would just ask that people have, if they've reviewed the report, I assume you have, that if you have any questions, the finance director is here to answer them.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the finance director? Counselor Hatch, if we could have the finance director come up. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming up. I just had a couple of high-level questions and a comment. The interest on investments, which is on page 77 of our packet, I think it's page 2 of your summary. The progress to budget was established last year, and I'm just curious your thoughts on the interest rate environment we're in and the possibilities that this might actually outproduce our expectations from last year's budget setting process. So whether you might answer that, or the city administrator, our investments must be, the market's been fairly good lately.
So far, it's keeping up with last year.
Okay.
The rates have been really good so far. This is on our investment accounts and any accounts that have interest bearing.
Okay, all right. So we anticipating at least budget may be higher?
Again,
Yeah.
deferring to the finance director, if you look at 75%
Right.
of our attainment, I would suspect, because it's one more quarter left, that we would probably attain the amount and probably might exceed it.
I
But
think might exceed.
might, yeah.
Yeah, that was my thought, is the exceeding of, because the rates have improved, I think, since we first cast that budget. And then just an acknowledgement of something I think we all know, but on that same page, a few lines down, you get the sale of city assets at $200,000. That was the School Street property, I believe.
Correct.
And so when that transaction completes, this money will not be coming into the budget. So I just wanted to verify my own understanding of that. And then I'm seeing some pretty substantial above-budget activity in the building permits, plumbing permits, so obviously an indication of the construction activity that's going on in the city, so I guess that's an upside to that process. And then our excise taxes, which I had previously made some comments about people registering their cars on time, that seems to be happening, which is a good thing, and With the cost of vehicles these days, I'm sure that's going to be a real bonus for us by year end. So those are just some high-level comments. I did want to make just a general comment, Director Maythorn. The presentation format is totally different than what we've had before, and the accountant in me really likes it. Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah. I think you're very succinct. I think that the listing out of the 2 pages of budget to actual comparison is very, at least for somebody like me, it's what I like to see, because I can simply grab a ruler and go down and highlight a few things that stick out like a sore thumb. And all the things that stuck out were positive things, at least in my mind. But I did want you to know that I personally appreciated the change in format. I like it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions of the finance director? All right, I think we're all set. Thank you very much. All right, that ends item 9, action items, and we move on to new business. First one is parking plan and proposed fee schedule changes for 142 Main Street parking lot. This has been assigned to Councilor Johnson. If you wish to stay on as a council resource. I see a affirmative through head movement. All right, thank you. Believe this will be for staff presentation now, or is it just
Yes,
an update? Perfect.
Good evening. So this will be, back before you after tonight's discussion, and we'll actually need to incorporate an ordinance change of Chapter 211, which we realized when we were looking at, it's more than just amending the fee schedule once we decide what fees we want to charge for that parking lot, because the Chapter 211 actually references the name of all the city parking lots that are included in that. So we'll have to bring it back, so you'll see it a few times since it's an ordinance revision. But I think it would be great tonight to just discuss kind of staff put sort of one three-prong approach to parking that would honor the lease with the abutting property that we've already entered into, provide about 20 spaces of 2-hour parking for downtown businesses if needed, while still providing over 40 spots for sort of a day rate that is less expensive perhaps than the train station lot, so almost a economy lot like you'd see at an airport or a train station, where the closer you park, the more you pay. If you want to park a little bit further away, you can pay less. So that's kind of the concept before you, but it's all open to discussion. I'll just let you know we've done a lot of brush clearing in that parking lot. We're getting ready to restripe the parking spaces. Wanted to wait till this initial discussion just to see if we were good with the, just in case there was any feedback about wanting to completely reconfigure it. I don't anticipate that, and we have already installed the camera device that sees exiting vehicles and sets off a small strobe out by this crosswalk to. It's a tough parking lot pulling in and out of, and there's nothing we can do about that given the bridge configuration. But this device has a strobe that goes off, and it tells pedestrians that a vehicle is exiting. So we didn't want to promote use of this until we had that safety feature in place, and that equipment took a while to get, but it's active now.
Do we have any questions for Director Fox? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you. I guess comments more than questions. I really appreciate the safety approach. I also appreciate your 3-prong approach. I think that the 2-hour free parking with the longer-term paid parking, your economy lot approach, I think is really useful, and I think is probably the right approach to take. I guess the only feedback I would echo is, I think many of us heard from one of my constituents today in an email, is if it's possible to create like a seasonal or a monthly or some other pay structure for those who use the lots on a daily or regular basis to create an additional discount. And I'm thinking sort of like our municipal parking pass we use for the beach area. If there's some kind of other rate for those frequent commuters, I think having them park here for that cheaper rate is absolutely appropriate. But if there's a way to structure that, I think that might be useful for some of those train commuters.
Okay. Just, just be aware as we explored this, what we were mindful of is if we get so cheap with this rate that it's only $1 a day or something to park a car, what you're going to see is you're going to see all of our downtown density apartments and all of these, mill conversions. You're going to see extra vehicles from there. It'll be so cheap for a resident to get a pass that they'll just park a car there, and it'll have nothing to do with commuting. So these rates, I mean, if you set it at, say, half of, somewhere in the $2.50 to $3 range for the day, you are still incredibly cheap. I know there were references in some of those comments about I could drive to Wells and park for free. Well, the Wells station and parking lot are not located in a dense downtown area. The more dense downtown area you go to, the more you pay for parking across any place in this country, and there's a reason. It's harder to come by, it costs more to maintain. We paid a lot for the parking lot. And by charging too little, so say we made a monthly rate that was even cheaper than that, if someone for $30 and all they have to do is be a resident of Saco can get a parking pass, you'll see extra vehicles just parked there all the time because it becomes really cheap to have a spare vehicle at that point. So that's my only concern with going any cheaper. I do believe our electronic system could accommodate a monthly rate. As you know, our entire system is pay by plate and electronic now, which we'll try to reflect in the ordinance amendments since we're making them anyway, because we've never really addressed the newer system or how we operate our parking. It just talks about old permits that you had to come get at City Hall, and we don't really do that anymore. So,
Yeah, and I apologize. I probably should have asked a question before I made a comment. I didn't see a suggested daily rate as part of this, so I guess I didn't know what you had in mind. But even the convenience of being able to pay a month at a time for whatever rate staff deems is appropriate may facilitate some commuting also.
okay. If there's any other discussion you want to have on the actual rate, it does kind of clean up having it as we're going over the ordinance changes or something, so in more of a workshop setting. We've bounced around ideas that, half of the other day rate that we discussed and went through when we set up the lower lot at the train station would be $2.50. All payments are electronic, so I'm not too worried about the even dollar versus having cents. Otherwise, I would just say make it 2 or 3. But since we're not really talking cash payments anymore, I would say, half of that other lot would be $2.50. So we figured somewhere between there and $3 or something. We can start there if you want, as you go through the ordinance in that range.
So I've used the system. It was $5 a day. I didn't mind that. But I found out by downloading the app, I could have just spent another day or a couple days in Boston and just paid by the app and not moved my car. Do we have limitations on how long? Because I could have just done that, paid $150 and kept my car there for a month.
We did put a limit on the number of days for the lot at the train station, so I guess we should, we'll have to see if we want to do the same. But I think we said it's either 10 or 14 days. And the system would, so there's still parking enforcement, and if they see the same car in the same space for 30 days or something like that.
But if I paid for it, so we got to clean that up.
But the signage tells you can't occupy a space for more than 10 days. So that goes back to sort of the older style parking enforcement of seeing the same vehicle sit in the same place. They do the new system, instead of chalking tires, it's valve stem position. The parking enforcement officer, when they're going around, it takes a picture of the plate, and they actually, on a clock, basically pick where the valve stem is. There are ways to say, did that car move or did it not? Again, it's one of those things that probably the level of enforcement will depend on the level of abuse of our policy, but.
Right, and if I might,
Yeah,
one of the things that we'll probably find, this will be the first year, we might find that we have to shift more spaces to downtown businesses. We don't know. So I think the feedback we get, having this as described by Director Fox, makes sense in that if we charge 50% less for the parking for the long term, we can see how that goes. But we also would probably try to have the parking enforcement person do an inventory of how many cars they see in the downtown free parking. I think that's important. The other thing I would have to say is that also we're getting a monthly income on the lease parking, which that is a pretty good amount that we get in every month. So I would say that the council can adjust as we go along. How about if we give it a shot to give some pricing and some parameters relative to how long you can stay at the parking, and then let the council, take a look at what we've proposed and make a decision as to if they want it higher or lower, or if you want less days. Given the type of lot this is, we may find we want to go less than 10 days. We might want to go to 72 hours, something like that. We know over at the train station, people have parked there because they're using the train. We're not totally sure why somebody might be in this long-term parking, so on the municipal parking lot. So I think, given that, if people are comfortable with us coming back with an amount for the long-term parking and the other free parking for the downtown, we can come back and put it together as an ordinance, and then we can amend it as the council sees fit. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I would, and this isn't a motion, so I can talk, correct? We're all fine with that? All right. I would suggest no longer than 2 weeks, because I have parked for 10 days. I took the train to North Station, I Ubered to the airport, I flew out to Paris, we've done this before, so I think 2 weeks allows for those extended vacations. It encourages to use the train. 72 hours, probably for the premium spots, if we have different levels of, I don't want to say, different levels of how close you are. Yeah. But yeah, allowing some long-term parking, even if you have to pay more, because I think it's 15 a day at the airport. So, Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I am amendable to staff coming up with the numbers like the city administrator and director said. I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on Councilor Berman by just making note of the fact that one of the things that makes Saco such a remarkable community is that we have this access with the Downeaster to get to Boston, to get to Point South, but you don't have to pay an arm and a leg parking-wise that you would have to do in Portland or, frankly, any other community south. And I know we don't want to leave any money on the table. That's certainly, when we're trying to pay our bills and not pass it on to our residents by hiking the fee structure again next year, though I'm certainly amenable to that. That being said, I am open to having a discussion about going on the lower side, but not too low, to the director's point, though. So, and the idea of a monthly pass with restrictions in terms of length of parking, I think would be prudent as well, though, because, like I said, if you can give people that are regular commuters a discount, and they're choosing to live here and not in some other community, and they're putting that much, money into our system, though, I don't want to punish that, though, because if anything, it's making the city more marketable, and the last thing you want to do is do what Portland did with the United Parking Partners, and what the in my personal opinion, the bad PR that's given the city in terms of trying a place to park and pay Boston prices for a night in Portland, which is frankly absurd, and all due respect to our friends in Portland, though, but I don't want to go down that route.
Yeah, Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm in full agreement as far as letting staff come up with, suggested price. I do have concerns. I understand, councilors' concerns about commuters, and I don't know how you do this outside of making this overly complicated, but I do think it's important we tie that to actual commuters, because this parking lot will fill up if we just do a 30-day pass to anybody, because I know of several of my neighbors that just move their car. They have multiple cars, and they'll leave their motorcycle on Cross Street or on Cutts, and eventually they'll lose that spot, and they'll just move it to a different location in the downtown because they don't have access to parking. So you give them that option where they can pay, whatever we're saying, $5 a day, and have a guaranteed spot. It will fill up. 44 spots will be filled in no time, in my opinion. And I think that's been the challenge we had previously. We had that lower lot. So while I want to be supportive of true commuters, I don't know how many that are using those lots are really the true commuters that we have heard from.
And I would just add they should be Saco citizens, which we'd have to find a way to
Right.
verify that. Because we do know that we've received emails from people outside of our community.
Scarborough, Biddeford.
So,
Yeah, we're trying to meet these needs and be mindful of the low staffing levels we maintain in the departments that have to enforce this. We have a parking division of one. So we're trying to be mindful and take advantage of the electronics available to us to not make this an intensive annual follow-up on someone's employment or place of employment. I mean, commuting these days, a lot of the jobs aren't even in person. So you could work for a company in Boston and go down 5 days, or you could work for a company in Boston and go down 1 day a week. So that's the employment verification piece
Well,
is
it would
just
be-
a different staffing level
it would be
thing.
residential, I would say just show proof of
Yeah.
a deed or even just
Yeah,
utility.
but most of these are filled out online. So there's no in-person interaction at this point for these, and that's how we've been able to keep our parking enforcement to one person and not several.
Councilor Johnson. Not Johnson, my apologies. Councilor Berman.
Yeah, well, so for the resident beach permit pass, we have to verify residency. We could do the same for this pass, I imagine. And for a commuter pass, we could disallow overnight parking. If you get the 30-day rate, that could not include overnight parking, which would help ensure it's for commuters. The enforcement there gets a little bit tricky, but the parking enforcement officer, if they notice the same car in the same spot with the same valve stem every day, would then have pretty good inclination that the car had been there overnight. And so that you're paying for a month without overnight parking privileges could really help restrict it to commuters, I think.
Any other discussion?
It's one,
Councilor Johnson.
just one last question for clarity purposes. The elimination of, 5 or 6 in the beginning and then to the rear, I assume the purpose is for maintenance, snow and whatnot?
Turnaround space, just in case a larger vehicle isn't comfortable being able to back out and they had to go all the way to the end to turn around. Snow storage in the winter. The area in the front, if you notice, the parking lot widens out significantly where we started our parking lines. And because the entrance can sometimes only fit one vehicle wide, depending on the size of the vehicle, we wanted cars to be able to pull off to the side and sort of give that neighborly space for another car to come in or leave. Because we can't widen it at all. You have railroad tracks and river, so people sometimes will have to actually alternate in the narrowest part of that parking lot. So we didn't want cars crowded up to that. We wanted to, and that will also provide a place to actually put a parking kiosk so people who don't have the app can pay in person. We already have we brought a spare parking meter into our inventory because we have enough of them now that it didn't make sense not to have it. So the day we make this active, we can put a kiosk down there so people can do in-person parking.
Any other discussion? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you. I'm just still concerned about the abuse, if you will, of the use of the lot for non-commuters and folks who are just looking for a place to stash their car. Although a lot of these citizen permits can be done online, I'm still an old-fashioned guy. I like to go to City Hall and get my parking permit. And I recall, first of all, I got my senior citizen waiver because it was a visual thing. She could see that I was qualified. But I had to produce my car registration, because that information gets on the permit. And I think that was it. So it also establishes my residency. I'm just thinking that if that same verification is required when you do it online, in some way, shape, or form, that having the ability to submit some basic evidence of the fact that you are commuting, you know, a business card, a brief statement from an employer, something that can help us validate the folks who are actually using the lot for commuting purposes. And I'm assuming that will be a separate commuter pass as opposed to a pass that would get you down to Camp Ellis or Bayview. So those are just random thoughts bouncing around in my head. But I think it would be helpful if you could find some simple. I get the the fact we want to minimize, the paperwork here, but there may be some creative ways in which we can get a simple document as part of the submission for the application that can make us feel a little warm and fuzzy that we're actually giving these spots to the purpose, for the purpose for which they're intended. And these permits expire. The ones we have now expire. They're annual, so, every year, if I change employment, I'm going to have to come and fess up and let you know. So just some random thoughts for you.
Any other questions? I'm researching right now. It's Flowbird, correct? That's the app we use?
Yeah.
Is there a way for where I can just take a picture of my registration? I know you might not have that question, but maybe it's a question.
Yeah, that flows through between finance and the police department and the software package, so I couldn't tell you right now, but
Because
we'll
if
give
I
you
could
a...
just quickly take it, it uploads it, and then even our parking enforcement, all they're doing is looking at the picture and saying, well, click.
Yeah, when we bring it back, I can certainly at least
Seems
provide
normal.
you, can this all be done online, or did we just create a step that requires a longer line downstairs waiting for someone and doing it in person? Yeah, we'll figure out if there's the purely electronic way or if it's in person.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that brings us to item B, Chapter 176 Sewers Ordinance Revision to Appendix A, Residential Uses, WWRD Flow Schedule for Impact Fees, and I left my agenda, so who is that assigned to? To be determined. Is there any counselor who wants it? Who wants the waste? You want the waste? I'll take the waste. All right, Counselor Gunn.
Easiest one ever. So I guess it's pretty self-explanatory, since we adjusted the size of an accessory dwelling unit from 800 square feet to 1,000, we're just adjusting the impact fee to reflect that. It's a paperwork change, question.
Do we have any questions? Straightforward.
Yep.
Any from the city administrator? Nelson? Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. All right, that concludes new business. That brings us to item 11, administrative update, which there was an email at one point.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Honor. I did have in my report a couple items that I wanted to bring to your attention. First is the visit by the Army Corps of Engineers back on Wednesday, May 29th. There was a large contingent from the Army Corps. They spent the whole day in Saco. I think there was a lot of positive energy that was flowing, and Director Fox and I were able to meet with them in the afternoon. So I'm very favorable as to how it went, and look forward to them continuing the way they are. I know that that a lot of people noticed they were out there, and certainly we are happy that they are now paying attention to the schedule that we hope that they will follow. The other item deals with City Hall hours. As I promised, I have a report back to you relative to that. And we've had positive feedback on it, but there also have been some that have concerns. But one of the concerns that they say could alleviate some of this would be a kiosk for able to do some online type of business here at City Hall. Again, the recommendations is to continue this program. I think it has been successful. I think we have found that the staff really appreciates this. Also, the public has been surveyed, and like I said, there are over 358 surveys that we did receive in. So we did do some work relative to that. I also want to mention that, keeping with the City Council's concern, we will stay open 5 days a week, unlike there are many communities around and more joining that have gone to 4 days. I don't think we're ready for that. I think people really want to see us open at least 5 days right now. And we have continuing to add items that can be done online, but again, we have to be cognizant of those that want to come in and pay their bills or do whatever in a person-to-person relationship. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. That brings us on to, well, sorry, question, Tyler. We have a question here.
Is there any updated timeline from the Army Corps about what next steps we should expect and when they should occur?
I would probably, Director Fox, I don't know if you, I was in the meeting too, but I could have missed it. Was there anything that you picked up on that?
I come without being armed with my notebook from that meeting. But we had a great meeting. Their entire design team of engineers from several different offices were here, walked up and down the jetty, got the lay of the land. They tossed around some dates, but they were also, as a team, formulating what tasks can run concurrently versus sequentially. So they were still kind of working that out. But I mean, they were like starting right away. And a big piece of it was updating all the modeling. So the woman who's going to be running all of the modeling, starting like basically the day after she got this information, was there. So that's starting. And then some other people on the design team commented how they're not reliant on the modeling data for certain aspects of their design, so they can get started right away, and those can run in parallel paths. So they're still formulating ways to condense that, but I will say it was very positive to just see the energy and how front and center this is for them. So this did not go, I mean, as we've been, I think, concerned in the past, this did not go on a back shelf. These are active engineers and scientists that are working on this actively right now. So we will see a written schedule, but I think it was mostly just sharing that information that we could to help them understand what exists, what help we could provide, and how they can move forward. So I think everyone got a lot out of it, but no set dates yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city administrator? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. To follow up with the city administrator about the idea of a kiosk, because I know myself and a couple other councilors had that idea when we went to this 4.5-day situation at the beginning of the pilot program. Have you been able to sort of envision or put out or research prices in terms of viability, physical location, things of that nature? And if not, I would certainly encourage you to do so, because I think this is something where you're going to have some consensus, though, that if we're going to keep going on this, so to have a kiosk, at least it doesn't have to be, I would say it doesn't have to be completely full service, though, but at the same time, enough service so it's at least the viable, the ones that people, they can do a little bit more easier, as opposed to the ones where they really have to come in and ask for some help on that one, though, because, I mean, obviously you don't want to, go completely above, above board, though, when we are open full-time 4 days a week.
So, if I might.
Yes, of course.
So what we're going to do is, we wanted to wait until all the surveys were in. We wanted to evaluate what people had to say. And I'm in the process of working with staff now to see how it best could be configured to be user-friendly. So we are working on it.
Any other questions? No? That moves on to council discussion and comment. Does any councilor have a discussion or a comment? Councilor Johnson?
2 items. The first one, and I'm not crazy because I have evidence. Through the month of May, on several occasions, in fact, I slept through this, to be honest, but I had people contact me about explosions, the sound of explosions in the downtown. I took it upon myself to review some of my security tapes, and sure enough, it's definitely an explosion. And while I'm certainly no expert, I do have an extensive background with explosives in the Marine Corps. So it's not fireworks that people have said. To me personally, it sounds kind of like an M80 or something thereabouts, which have been illegal for, gosh, my entire life, I believe. But I'm just curious if anybody knew what it was. At first I thought maybe wastewater, but this is like 4 a.m., 4 to 5 a.m. I don't know if others have heard it. I mean, I had this past weekend somebody out, again, in the vicinity of wastewater, be the one that said, "Did you hear that?" And like I said, I've slept through it. But sure enough, when I looked at my tapes, it's like, oh yeah, that's loud and clear. So I'm just curious if anybody knows what it is, and again, if someone's setting off explosives at, again, 4 to 5 almost every day, when I really started to go back and look at video footage, it's not quiet. It's actually kind of concerning that I slept through it when I think about it. So I don't know, maybe if PD could be on the lookout for that. I know that there are many concerned residents, and I don't know if it's been on social media.
Ward 1 was exposed, in May. It happened like once or twice, caught me off guard, and it was not a pistol round, it was not a
No,
rifle. When you become known,
Yeah.
it's a noise and a tone that you recognize, it's not just a firework.
Correct.
Because it's more about concussive.
You can
than
feel
it is-
that.
Than
Yeah,
it
you
is like
can
a
feel that.
firework, it just quick snaps, it's boom, and that's what I had heard.
So what I can do is we can check the logs. I'll ask the police chief to check his logs. And you're saying it's about 4 a.m.?
4 to 5.
Mine
mean,
was
I think-
daytime, and I
Was it
experienced it,
daytime?
caught me off guard.
Yeah, it's almost always, again, this is from not just my neighbor. The
Yep.
first one was someone on Store Street that had said, hey, did you hear that? And didn't, but I went and looked, and not only did I hear it on again, my video footage, but you can see the flash down Store Street. So I thought maybe it was in one of the parking lots, so I took a stroll to see if I could see any burn marks or whatnot. And then a couple days later, had somebody else make comment about it to me, and it's localized in the downtown, but it's not just this. I mean, it's Ward 6 downtown too that I've had, residents ask. In fact, a family friend, had indicated, oh, my son woke up and told me there was an explosion. Did you hear anything? And like I said, sure enough, I went and looked at my TV. Yep, exactly when it was like 4:22 in the morning. She's like, oh. So again, I don't know what it is, but it is a bit concerning.
I'll talk to the police chief tomorrow. If there's something I can provide to clarify this, I immediately get it out to the council.
Thank you. And then additionally, trying to figure out, I got to choose my words carefully on this one. Our sister city, for those of you who do not know, have an item on their agenda tomorrow night, which I think is or may impact us. And like I said, I'm going to choose my words wisely because I think a lot of the rhetoric that has been sent our direction from the administrator of Biddeford in the past, when it comes to dealing with the unhoused, has been misplaced. But specifically, they in Biddeford are looking to move forward with addressing their unhoused encampments that are, I think you'd have to be blind if you drive down Main Street and don't see what is in place at Mechanics Park. And I won't read the 6-page memorandum that Mr. Bennett has produced, but I would advise the rest of council to read what's before Biddeford City Council tomorrow night, because they're enacting a policy that will forbid being housed outside starting July 8th. And again, they are trying to formulate a plan, though I will say they have a date before they really have a plan. And to their own acknowledgement, in this memo, it states that approximately a third of the individuals will gladly accept the indoor solution and the expectations that will come with it. Another third will choose to find other indoor alternatives that they independently identify. The remaining members will not choose the indoor opportunity or will not comply with the reasonable expectations that are required to use the facility. Those individuals tend to move on to another location outside of the municipality. They further go on to indicate that 30% is likely to relocate to a neighboring community fairly close by. I would say that there's no more closer community than the city of Saco. Again, this is my personal opinion here, but when you have language that actually suggests that this is a good thing, because this will force a regional approach, that communities like Saco will then be forced to take an immediate action due to their I guess, immediate action, though I would argue that this has been an issue for well over 2 years, that, personal opinion, they chose to look the other way until it got to a point where it is as bad as it is. So I don't know if conversations have occurred between yourself, Mr. City Administrator, and the mayor. It certainly has never occurred with us, and a lot of the rhetoric I hear is that, Saco is not willing to participate. I know, again, you weren't here at the time, but that certainly was said publicly in the newspaper, that, we can't wait to work with the city of Saco because we'll be waiting forever. Nobody has ever come before city council to address this situation. But I am concerned that they now have a plan and admittedly are saying they're coming your way while producing a policy that is, they're cleaning up any homeless encampment and basically forcing them into surrounding communities. Which, again, that doesn't sound like a regional approach to me, but, and I won't criticize them how they deal with their processes, but I just am curious have there been conversations?
The answer is yes. The Biddeford Saco Joint Council Committee, City Committee, it's an active discussion, so that's why we haven't got to you yet. But we just met 2 weeks ago.
It's not very active if they have a plan. I guess that's where I'm a little bit irritated by this, not specifically at our side, but I mean, I've already seen an uptick. Again, I can go back to video footage. I can show you some pretty disturbing behaviors of people that were clearly uncontrollably high on drugs right in my neighborhood. And if we're admitting that that's going to increase 30%, like it's a given, and they're moving forward with a plan, July 8th, no more, which I thought we had an issue of constitutionality. Apparently we're going to ignore that because the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on that last I checked, and roll out a policy that now impacts their neighbors. And nobody has been more sympathetic to the homeless situation in this community, at least at council level, than I think I have. As I've stated before, many of these people, individuals, or some of them are my former classmates. But I'm more than willing to say that I believe the vast majority in Biddeford's situation are Biddeford residents. I know of people in Saco that are homeless. They're not part of those encampments. They're living in vehicles, as I've said before. I have one that's, it's a regular, they sleep in a vehicle. It's not the same context at all. And I guess I'm just concerned by this knee-jerk reaction all of a sudden. And again, I've had these conversations with several of you privately of, what I experienced in downtown Biddeford with my family. Right out in the open. I mean, I'd never seen anything in the state of Maine anyway, open drug use, right in front of my children, shooting up, smoking crack, things like that. Certainly not something that I think any of us believes is an acceptable behavior. And I recognize, as I've said before, that, drug addiction it's a mental health issue. I certainly have had my share of friends that have lost their lives from it. But I can ramble on this because I am concerned because we don't seem to have a policy, but they're moving forward with a policy to say, hey, this behavior ends. And again, you can read the memo. It's pretty clear that they're saying that 30% that won't accept housing are the ones that can't meet the standards, meaning being clean, not abusing drugs. So we're going to put 30% back onto, I guess, Saco streets and not have had a neighborly conversation about how to address this. You go back a summer ago or a summer and a half ago, I made it fairly clear when we were talking about the School Street Church that may be an option. It was in the paper, so there was an opportunity there from the city of Biddeford to try to have a regional approach. So I'll end it at that, and I guess I'll listen to what others have to say. But again, knowing that this is going to impact the downtown specifically, because they're just going to cross a bridge and go to the train station area and anywhere else, or hey, how about the investment that is occurring on the other side of the island? I mean, this doesn't seem like the appropriate way to deal with this, in my opinion, if you really want a regional approach.
So I think there is some legal implication, so possibly, I'll talk with the mayor and city administrator, he's here listening to me now, maybe we have an executive session for a legal update of that court decision that you're aware of.
The court decision was, the Ninth Circuit, which is out in California. I mean, technically, it does not affect those outside of that circuit. But as Councilor Johnston said, it is very close to Supreme Court. It is before the Supreme Court right now, and you could have a decision come down any day. I might add that when I got here, we did agree to work with the city of Biddeford and actually funded half of the unhoused study that was done. So we worked with them on that. We did, as the deputy mayor said, we just as recently as probably less than 2 weeks ago, met with the mayor and our mayor and their mayor and the city manager and myself and other council members that are assigned to that group. And I certainly look forward to working with Biddeford. It's kind of a frosty reception, but certainly I'll keep trying. I think it's something we need to work with. We're so close together. We need to cooperate, and certainly I will reach out again. And I think the best way to do this would be to work through the respective mayors, because it is a policy decision. I mean, certainly I, as the city administrator, can't make any decisions for the city council, because I think there's going to be both economic decisions that have to be made here, and we certainly will be prepared to do that if we have to. I want to work together with whoever will work with us. So I think what I will be doing is I'll be reaching out to the mayor tomorrow to talk to her, and just because like I said, we just met on this, and I thought we were ready to start moving in the direction of cooperation, but I will have to take a look at that 6-page memo if you care to share it.
Yeah,
So I will.
You caught me off guard.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
again,
I was
it's
like,
not a
we just talked
criticism
about it.
of
Oh, no,
any of our side. It's all of a sudden, I mean, I've been loosely following along too, and then all of a sudden I see this, and it's like, they're creating policy in Biddeford to not allow public camping in parks. So essentially, we don't have that policy, so we can just come to Diamond Park, Front Street, you name it, and that's where they're going to go. There's nothing to stop it, and I mean, it seems like we're just shifting things around and saying, oh, we want a regional approach. Well, a regional approach would have been us all having that conversation and not stating 30% is going to go to a neighborhood or a neighboring community close by when there's only one. I don't think they're going to Arundel.
Councilor Byrne?
Yeah, I just took a second to look at the report that Councilor Johnson referred to. It's on the Biddeford City page on their workshop for tomorrow. It's easy to find. It's publicly available. Looks like July 8th is their date for closing public encampments. So we have about a month to work things out. They are going to offer beds, it looks like, to all the people in the encampments. But at July 8th, the encampments will close.
Councilor Gunn?
I would just, not to be flippant though, but in regards to that decision out in California, that while it's not binding on our part of the country, may set a precedent. And as we saw in Portland a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure the ACLU will have something to say about what Biddeford has in mind. And I hope they do, honestly, because in the interim, I tell you, it takes two to cooperate. And regardless of our past histories and chips on the shoulder and all that nonsense, we put our hands out to offer our support. And we fund one of the shelters, I believe there, or at least half of it or something, or to that. So my point is, we're in a situation where they may accuse us of not doing our share, but we are more than willing to come to the table and say, if it is a regional problem, do not just dump this on us at the last second. We will work with you in term and give us the opportunity to get our parameters in place so we have a way to take care of these folks if and when they do end up on our side of the river, so they're not just standing out there exposed as it gets colder, because that's certainly not our intent, though if anything, Saco has the ability and the means and certainly the heart to take care of these people, and if any other community, implies that we don't, I have a real issue with that, and I'm sure plenty of my constituents would as well. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, sorry. Counselor Hewitt?
Are there any ordinances that we have that would protect or prevent situations arising that have arisen in other communities, like Ithaca, New York? New York Times just had an article about a place called The Jungle. And Ithaca reminds me a lot of Saco, a small town, not a big city, and reading some of the things they encountered. What provisions do we have in place? Because we do want to help these people, but at the same time, we want to protect our citizens. And I think having rules in place in advance would prevent a lag time of things getting out of hand.
Right, if I might add, that at this point, we should probably wait and establish something with the whole council and bringing together a work session that would, we can have some answers and the right people here. So at this point, I think the message has been heard loud and clear, and certainly we need to work on that situation. So I will work with the mayor and the committee to maybe put this at the top of the list, and which it needs to be, and see what we can do to work with Biddeford. I think that's probably the best for both communities.
Any other discussions? Council discussions? No? Moving forward, that brings us to item 13, executive session. Do we have someone to read into the motion or bring us into executive session, please? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Section 405(6), D, non-union salary increases, and A, Parks and Recreation reorganization.
We have a motion to go into executive session. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Johnson. Any discussion? All right. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
It'll be in the city administrator's office.
Will be in the city administrator. Motion passes 6-0. Do we have a motion to return, or to exit executive session?
So moved.
Do we have a second to exit?
Second.
We have a motion in executive, a second to exit executive session. I've never had to say it that often. It kind of rolls. Any discussion? Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Motion passes 6-0 to exit executive session. Do we have a report?
No report.
We have no report. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Berman and a motion from Counselor Hatch. Any discussion? All in favor? I'm sorry about that. I'm thinking AMVETS right now. That's all I have to say. Counselor Parks.
Yes.
Counselor Gunn.
Sure.
Counselor Berman.
Yes.
Counselor Hatch.
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt.
Yes.
Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
We all wear different hats. Motion passes 6-0 to adjourn at 9 o'clock.